Hello, hello. So I actually won't be speaking about Octant that much. When I looked at the agenda, I realized that the topic feels a little bit like a product pitch, and no one loves that. So instead of that, I will be talking about why we need a new funding models in the context of DIAC, and also like I will say like a few words about Octant, but that will be towards the end. So once you see that I'm talking about Octant, that means that we are very close to the end. Okay, so how that all connects? I would say that there is like a strong connection between DIAC, Web3, and the concept of abundance. And like if you think about abundance as a business model versus scarcity as a business model, you can see that like a scarcity is the place where winner takes it all, while abundance is like a business model where everyone wins. So the benefit of a technology, of the innovation, is spread across society. And I think that approach is kind of important for DIAC. If you think about how things can go wrong with technology, you can have like a digital monopoly, you can have aggressive monetization on the life-saving technology and many others. This is like a winner takes it all situation. And in a way, like this business model, this scarcity business model, is what is provided by markets as they are. And by the way, I don't mean that the scarcity approach is bad. Like this is how markets work. This is like how capitalism work, and this is great. Like that delivers us all the goods and services that we have, and it works. The problem starts when you can create an efficient monopoly around that, creating scarcity, okay? Because we don't have like a scarcity of like a goods and services we use every day because we don't have a monopoly situation. So I would say like the monopoly is what might be problematic here. So abundance business model is not surprisingly like a Web3 business model. So this is like a business model which is based on the open source software, about permissionless approach to like how you can participate in that model. It is decentralized, and it has network effects without platform lock-in. So I would say this is like everything that we present like a decent Web3 projects. And of course, like that means that there is a lot of space for funding public goods in that business model. So if you think about Ethereum, for example, in a way, everything that runs, that makes like a Ethereum L1 running is a public good. Okay? It is like it check the boxes, most of them at least. So we are talking about public goods funding in that model, but we have to remember that public goods funding is not charity. So we directly benefit from that. So there is something called Henry George Theorem that was actually formulated by Stiglitz, not by Henry George, but like called like that as a tribute to the Henry George, who was like a famous economist as well. And it basically says that beneficial investment in public goods will increase aggregate land rents by at least as much as the investments cost. So what does it really mean? That means that if we set that, like for better understanding, that once government invests in infrastructure, which increases like a landowner's income because like of a better infrastructure, which is taxed to fund government investment, so that income, but the increase of landowners' income is greater or equal to the investment's cost, and hence necessary taxation increase is lower or equal to income increase. Which means that as long as you are able to conduct beneficial investment in a public good, that will increase like an income of those landowners. So you can translate that into Web3 setting or DIAC setting through saying that like someone invests in that case like a digital commons, and that increases the value of the ecosystem, which is used to, and that value can be used to further fund the commons of that digital commons of that ecosystem, and that the increase of this value is greater or equal to the investment's cost. So necessary funding increase is lower or equal to the value increase. And again, we are coming to this equilibrium situation as long as this increase in the value translates into increase in funding. So there has to be this loop. And this is interesting because if you then think about funding in the abundance business model, you will notice that, okay, so if it's done by a central actor, basically the central actor can capture benefits. But if the central actor captures all the benefits, then we are exactly heading to the scarcity scenario. So this is like a digital monopoly scenario. But if there is a central actor who funds and does not get the benefits, then system is not sustainable. And this is actually like what happens with the Ethereum Foundation right now. Because that means that, what does it mean that it is not sustainable? It does not mean that someone will run out of money. It only means that the level of investment in that system will be much lower than the optimal level of investment. So because in a way, those who benefit should fund the investments. Because if not, then you don't have enough investment for all the benefits to materialize. And this is as simple as that. So I would say that for Web3, Ethereum, DeFi, there are existential questions here. So first, who does the investment? That's the first one. And the second one is what is beneficial investment in public goods? Because this is something that is quite critical. This theorem says a beneficial investment in public goods, but what is a beneficial investment really? And that's that's, I would say, what really makes the difference when you think about what to fund and not to fund. Because when you ask a who question, that is a question who has agency, basically. But if you ask a what question, what is beneficial investment, that is, in fact, an ideological question. And just to, I cannot stress this enough. Funding is governance, is ideology. So if you decide to fund something, this is a governance decision, and this governance is always driven by the ideology you believe in. Now, just to avoid any confusion, I understand ideology here as a set of doctrines or beliefs that are shared by the members of a social group, or that form the basis of a political, economic, or other system. So there is nothing bad about being ideological. This is basically what we believe in, and even things that we believe are universally true are ideology. By the way, so if you say for example, killing humans is bad, and to avoid confusion, I believe killing humans is very, very bad. But this is ideology, okay? This is not objective truth. So every decision we take in governance is driven by ideology, okay? So ideology and beneficial investment. This is at the core of the problem. To understand that funding things is always subjective. It's always subjective. You will not have a perfect algorithm that will use some metrics and will decide what to fund. So you have an automated government. You will not. It is always subjective. Of course, you can say that, for example, you want to optimize for something. This is ideological decision, and then you can build a metrics to fund those who work towards meeting that metric best. You can do that. But to decide what is the goal, this is always the subjective. And even Pareto improvements are subjective. So Pareto improvement, this is a concept from public policy. This is a policy that makes everyone better off. So this is something you should always do, because you take the decision and everyone is better off. No one is worse. But then if you have two different Pareto improvements, and in one you make a metric A better and the other metric B better, then of course this is subjective. So even Pareto improvements are subjective. And scarcity of resources always sets limits, because even in the abundance model, or I would say especially in the abundance model. You have limited resources. So if you have limited resources, then you really have to think carefully whether you prefer A over B or B over A. Fundings, governance, that's covered. And all of that means that we need to be opinionated, because at the end of the day, this is our preferences that gets aggregated to say like what's get built or not. But the problem is we don't really know how to aggregate preferences yet. So like there is a lot of experimentation around that. Octant does it, like Gitcoin does it, like other organizations do that. Like Vitalik proposed like a lot of like things that can be done around that. Like David sitting here in the front row also did some experiments around that. But I wouldn't say we already know how to aggregate preferences, but we will get there. So I would say the mission for Octant and for others in that space should be that we need to design and implement mechanisms that capture the preferences of social groups and translate them into funding decisions that benefit these social groups in line with their shared doctrines and beliefs. And I also believe that neither Web3 nor DEAC will get us to abundance if we fail in this mission. So those, like make no mistakes, those funding models are not here. And we need that, we need them for all those things to materialize. And we need them for Web3, especially Ethereum, and we need from DEAC. Now, the last slide. What is Octant? So we generate yield from 100,000 ETH that is in staking, and that ETH comes from 2016 Golem crowdfunding. If you're in the space long enough, you may remember that event. Yield goes to GLM token holders, so this is our token holders, but also to matching fund, and like that also funds our operations and development. And users can keep the yield or they fund the commons. They can donate to like different projects, and then this funding is matched. So the GLM token lockers can decide on what gets funded. So this is like a governance model, like and funding model, but this is only one of possible approaches in Octant. So now we are working on the V2 version that is more about like connecting capital, community, and funding in a more generalized way. So you can experiment with like different settings. And at the end of the day, I believe that like what needs to be done with Octant, with other things, is like a fund, retrospect, refine, repeat, until we find the ways to fund things we need in DEAC, in Web3, in Theorem. So yeah, I invite you to join us in Octant V2 or to do your part with the others to bring us into DEAC future. I think this is important. I think this is like the only thing that will like decide about our survival at the end of the day. And thank you very much.